this is Angie of New Path Tarot, and today we are going to do a reading using the Blind Spot Oracle cards by Teal Swan. These cards were gifted to me, and I think they're probably one of the most profound decks that I own, to be honest. I didn't know what to expect because they're from Teal Swan, and I've always had mixed feelings about her stances on spiritual topics. Like, some of them I wholeheartedly agree with, some of them I have, been a little bit more on the fence about. But all in all, this deck right here, she did real good. So it is absolutely one that I recommend anybody who is into oracle cards get for yourself, just because it has the potential to be very transformative. And here's the thing about this deck that I really like, is the purpose of it is to tell you what it is that you do not know that you do not know. So most of these readings that you see, anytime you go to a psychic, blah, 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 it's telling you things you don't know. May they tell you things that you don't know, sure, but this is like next level kind of involvement here. And as such, I feel like it helps to, if you use the oracle deck in the way that I have been. Let me give you one example, okay? I, in my personal life, have a situation where I'm dealing with multiple people. Now, in the situation, and I'm aware of this, mind you, okay, so it's not that I don't know it. But what happened is, person A is the only, and I mean the only person who is meant to be involved in this situation. So I'm interacting with person A, okay? Person B, I'm interacting with person B as well. Completely separate thing though. So person B, it's only me and person B, back and forth, or at least it's meant to be. But on person A side, there's another person, and on person B side, there's another person. Now, person A and person B are also talking, and other person and other person are also talking, and other person and person A, and other person and person B. So I already know about this. This is not unknown to me. However, I picked the card that talks about triangulation in this deck. Triangulation. Okay, so I got that card. Oh my God, and I just opened right to it. You guys got to understand, sometimes things are like on point with spirit. Okay, so I'm explaining this card because I get it all the time. I keep picking it, and I'm like, okay, I already know this is a factor, but give me another card now. Yet I picked 4 cards for you guys to choose from, and not any of them were triangulation. So before I turn on the camera, triangulation. Turn on the camera for everybody, not that card. Bet you I turn it off and I'll get triangulation card again. But anyways, I got it, right? It said this could mean you are being triangulated, or you are triangulating people against someone, or people are triangulating against you, or all of the above. And then it talks about it. Like, this isn't a kind of card. This isn't the kind of oracle deck where you just get a really quick word or a sentence and then go about your day. This is like a meditative tool kind of thing, or self-work kind of tool. So if you are somebody who likes self-help books, you will love this oracle deck. So it's more than just, because I can tell you right now, some oracle decks are good for meditation, but honestly, if you're at the level of spirituality where you're teaching other spiritual type philosophy, then you're not getting much from the people who are like teaching the same things you're teaching. Whereas this, she did such a good job of taking it to a level that I'm like getting value from this. So there's like 5 pages just on this topic. So I'm not going to sit here and read it all to you, but it really breaks it down. And then I'm like, okay, so that's a factor. Very next day, something happens that normally would probably bother me, and it has to do with triangulation with A and B. And I went, oh my God, this is so funny. Triangulation. It's almost like the term gaslighting, where once you recognize gaslighting, you're like, you're gaslighting me right now, you know? Or once you recognize characteristics of narcissists, you're like, you're doing that thing, you know? And it's like you can, once there is a label and information, you know, knowledge is the key to everything. Once you are aware, and awareness being something too, of what, I don't know, it's just like how people operate, and you know, and then you can just see them for what they're doing, like, and so many people are acting on instinct, and they're not really like doing any kind of introspection, and they're just like going through the motions of living. This reading right here is deep, and if you're watching it and you're listening to what I'm saying right now, that means you are somebody who is interested in self-growth. Whether you're interested in spirituality or not, I don't think you'd be watching my videos, but you know what I mean? Like, there's this like, it's like different. You can be completely not interested in spirituality, but still be interested in self-growth, and vice versa. You can be like, I'm spiritual, but never do any kind of self-work. So here's the crossover right here with this card deck, okay? So here's your 4 choices, and you're not gonna know what the card is about, but you're gonna sense out, based on just looking at the sigil that Teal created in her own meditation practice. And so the first one is going to be card 12. The second one, 37. And you might be drawn to more than one. But I actually feel like you should just pick one right now. And then if you feel like more than one applies to you, take some time to process the complete message of one of the cards. And then at least overnight, and then return back to watch 33 is the third one, to watch any other ones that you feel drawn to. Here is another thing I want to say, is that here's 29. This is group 4. So I'm doing 4 groups with this one. Another thing I want to say is, and then it's gone. Where did it go? The first thing that comes to your mind when I say, like when I reveal what the sigil symbolizes, and if you're not familiar with the actual word of it or the phrase of it, then when I kind of start describing it, then the first person or situation that comes to your mind is highly likely the one that, or at least the main one to focus on. If it involves another person, it might not. But, or so the main topic that comes to your mind then would be what it's probably talking about. Okay, so pick between 12, 37, 33, and 29. 12, 37, 33, 29. Okay, so I'm gonna get to the readings now, starting with group 1. So if you picked 1, just keep watching. All right, let's look up this. I highly recommend you get this deck. It's something else. Okay, your goodness. Okay, what I'm gonna do, well, I was gonna say I'm gonna pause it and then talk about it, but I kind of want to say this really quick, just like the very little intro part. If you have drawn this sigil, in this situation, you and perhaps other people do not see your own goodness, capability, or excellence. Maybe you are not feeling good enough. Perhaps you are looking at other people and wishing you were as good as they are. Perhaps you are perpetually caught in self doubt, self blame, or self criticism. You do not see the truth of yourself clearly because you are seeing yourself through an inaccurate negative light. Ask yourself, what am I so afraid will happen if I admit to what is truly good and excellent about me? What am I so afraid will happen if I express this to other people? Okay, so now that I read that little intro, I mean I was gonna pause it, but this is not a very long one, and I feel like I can just kind of like it's kind of self-explanatory. For example, maybe this inner aspect of you is saying things like, "You're such an idiot. Why did you have to say that? You blew it this time." They're probably talking about you now as we speak. The vulnerability is something like, "I feel so powerless to do and say the right thing, and I'm terrified that if I say the wrong thing, people will reject me." And so this is one that is honestly, in my opinion, very easy and simple, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's so easy and simple to me. In fact, like, her sigils have these hearts in them, so that in hindsight it makes sense, right? That it has to do with your own way of perceiving yourself and noticing if you have negative self-talk, and not just noticing but checking yourself on it and being like, okay, well, I am probably being a little bit too more, let's even put it this way, I'm probably being more harsh and critical of myself than other people are being of me, or people are being harsh and critical of me, therefore instead of me rebelling against it internally, I am internally absorbing what they say and taking it on as if it's true, and that I also believe this about myself. So that's the key. If you have people who are basically feeding you negativity about yourself, that means they're toxic, and that means you need to cut them out. Now, there's a difference between somebody calling you on your shit and, you know, constructive criticism, and being downright, I don't know, I guess you'd say untrue about who you are, even as a person, like your very core nature, saying you as a person are not good. You know, that's not their place to judge your soul. You know, they aren't living your life. And you know, it's that kind of like walk a mile in your shoes analogy. So what defines somebody to be good? You know, like, who is a good person, and why would that make you not good? And what do good people do? You know, what do good people think? And, you know, everybody to a degree is their own worst critic. It's just, how critical are you on a scale of 1 to 10? You know, are you 10 maximum critical of yourself? And so the people around you as well, are they 10 on the level of 1 to 10 critical of you? Are you believing it or not? So that's that one in a nutshell. I'm gonna pull some tarot just to see, hypothetically, if there's anything, maybe messages for your group. Oh yeah, makes sense. Temperance. Temperance is the card of healing and balance. So it would make sense that in this context you would get this card for sure. Think of divine grace. is what's coming to my mind right now. It's like this idea of all is forgiven, repeatedly. It's like a weird kind of message I'm getting. It's like, it's almost like you have to keep forgiving yourself over and over and over again for the very same thing, because it's not sinking in, or it won't. Like, say you start now, and there's so I'm getting this impression that there's something that you have done that you feel like is unforgivable, and therefore, if you haven't started the forgiveness, the self-forgiveness process, then you have to start somewhere, and you have to start with the idea of repeatedly forgiving yourself, kind of like a fake it till you make it kind of vibe. Okay, the second card you're getting is the Eight of Cups, and the Eight of Cups is emotionally walking away. It's what happens before you physically walk away, usually, not always, because you can actually physically walk away but still be emotionally invested in something. But either way, whether it's before or after, it's saying to emotionally leave a situation, or in your case, a way of feeling, because emotions. So it's saying walk away from the way you've been emotionally. And one thing to note about Temperance, with the card having cups in it, and cups and water being emotions, there's the kind of like a complementary message. Okay, so that's what I'm getting for you guys. I feel like you guys will probably be drawn to watch another reading, and I know I said in the intro, like, maybe just watch one of them and let that process, but I think that you might have another one that correlates with it, and either will tie it together, or it'll just kind of like be another aspect of some healing that you need to do. One last parting message for your group is to make sure you're not the one doing this to others. Hurt people hurt people. I'm sure you've heard this before, where you get the idea of that only an unhealed person will inflict hurt on other people. So if you understand that the people who are like this are just wounded inner children, then you can have that emotional separation from them to say, okay, well, you're how you are, you can stay there, whatever, that's you. Me personally, I'm going to be working on my self-healing so that I'm not like this, so I can break that pattern, so that I can be that for myself, and so also I don't do that to others. And forgiveness for if you have, in order to not do that again. I got sidetracked because the other thing that came to me was about apologies. Your group might have a hard time apologizing, even if you know for sure you're wrong about something. So if you have something that you know, like, you feel apologetic for, but you just can't, like, you can't come to actually apologizing for it, that's something that you need to, like, work on and reflect, and do some digging and maybe rearranging of processes that make it hard for you to apologize when you're wrong, when you're wrong. It's almost easier to apologize when you're not wrong. Like, when you're not wrong, you just apologize loosely because you're like, yeah, whatever. But if it's like something you actually did, it's harder for some reason. Okay, so that's it for you guys, pile 12. I hope that gave you a little perspective, and maybe get you some healing for your temperance kind of healing that is needed. Okay, pile 2, 37. I think I've drawn this one for myself before, I think. Let me check what it is. No, I haven't. Wishing and willing harm. Interesting. Okay, if you have drawn this sigil, you are most likely totally unaware that you are wishing harm on others and or directly and indirectly trying to punish them. It is natural when we have been hurt to want to hurt others. What we are actually doing when we wish harm on someone is attempting to force them into a state of empathy. Even if it seems as though we're trying to push them away, we're actually trying to bring them closer. Okay, so let me scan this really quick, and I might pause it. Yeah, this is a long one. So I'm going to pause it and look over this one and just kind of see what the overall message of it is to give to you guys. And then I'm going to pull some tarot cards as well to see if we can get a little bit extra guidance from Spirit regarding your situation and where to go forward with it. Okay. Okay, so there, I read through this. There's a few things to take note of. Okay, so think of a situation in which you were wronged. Because this is not talking about wishing and willing harm that's unjust. It's talking about if an injustice was done to you and your reaction to that is revenge or payback, or you get that kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, so then there's the idea it's talking about of resentment, and so it's talking about needing to let go of resentment, because resentment in itself is, well, it's going to cause you problems, especially if it's in terms of if you're in a relationship with the person. Now, if this is not somebody you're in a current relationship with, but it's like, see, that's the thing, is this depends on if you're still dealing with the person or if this is an old wound. If it's something that happened to you in the past, there's another aspect of it where I think if you picked pile 1 and you're picking this pile 2, this definitely is gonna apply to you, but it could anyways, which is you're basically, where did it go? I think it was on this page. I think I skipped it. Being resentful toward yourself and basically putting yourself maybe in a situation that put you so that you were treated unfairly. For example, wrong place at the wrong time, or allowing somebody to treat you a certain kind of way. You beat yourself up over it instead of maybe seeing their side of it, or not even seeing their side of it, you know, putting it on them, like that they're the ones who did something. You internalize it and make it about your own resentment towards yourself for that situation. So there's that component of it as well. So the key part of resentment, as in letting go of it, is acceptance. That's what she says in here. So basically, if you have a situation that you're having a hard time with due to either you have issue with the circumstance and or another person, it's about reframing your way of thinking about the other person. If it's a situation, it's more likely that you're going to be internalizing it. So the problem is when you hate somebody, it only affects you. You hating somebody in itself doesn't do anything to anybody else except just fester within you. The actions and interaction you can have as a result of hating somebody, that can affect someone else. But if this is just an internal thing that you're carrying with you, like this internal burden, then you're definitely going to want to work on this to not allow it to continue. So there's this idea of compassion, obviously. Compassion is always taking the high road when you're in a situation of forgiveness needing to happen. And forgiveness isn't something you can force. It's something that happens. The key to forgiveness, and some of this is in the book, and the forgiveness part isn't per se, this is just stuff that I've come to, I don't know, either realize or have learned or, whatever. But, the part about forgiveness is like forgiveness and compassion being like this really hand in hand kind of thing. You look at another person and they did something wrong, and you think, what in them led them to do that thing? And more so, even be okay with doing that thing. Like, what caused them to make that choice against me? If you can get to the root of that, if you can isolate not what they did, but why they did it, then you can say, maybe understanding, if not compassion for what led up to it, then perhaps forgiveness can happen. But keep in mind, understanding, compassion, and forgiveness have nothing to do with you trusting the person. Like, if you're still dealing with them, doesn't mean that you will then be like, allow it to happen again, or something else. There's some people you never want to trust them. Like, it's almost like, not fool me once, shame on me, fool shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. With them, it's like, fool me 18 times, what the hell? They'll never change. And if they do, oh well, don't trust them anyway. There's those people. But that doesn't mean that you can't still forgive. Like, they can literally do something to you in this very moment, and you just have that, like, way of thinking about it. Like, it doesn't ruffle your feathers. You look at them and you're like, oh, you just have that wounded inner child still happening. Okay, well, that's where you're at. You're beyond that, though. So that's the goal of this card, is getting beyond wishing and willing harm for something or someone that was done to you that was negative, your reaction to it being a step above. So if you picked this one, that means that there's something regarding that is affecting you still. And therefore, that is what you're needing to diagnose and break apart and look at and visit. Okay, so now I'm going to pull tarot cards and let's see what we get for you guys, which may or may not give more information or... Okay, so we have a jumper card. Let's see what it is. You guys got Temperance on the bottom. That's the shadow card. And it came out upside down, which pile 1 got this card and it was upright. And therefore, if you picked 1 and 2, this definitely might be a tied message in some way, where the other one might be more easily attainable, and this one might be something you got to do a lot of digging, or this one might need to come first, or they coincide somehow. Okay, your jumper card was the Hermit, which is a card of introspection. So this is definitely going to take some alone time to process and do some digging for yourself. Okay. 3 reversed cards. Queen of Swords, 3 of Pentacles, 10 of Wands. Star reversed. This might be more than one thing. This might be a mentality in general that you need to overcome. Like, let's say even a small thing might set you off, or like just anything that might negatively happen to you, you might fester over it. You might be somebody who needs to vent about things. My suggestion to you is either, I think journaling would help you, but also talking to yourself instead of like putting all your stuff on someone else. If you have somebody who will listen to it and it's not like a problem for them, then I mean, by all means. But if it's like small things that are bothersome to you, I really feel like you need to vent, but you don't necessarily need to vent to another person. But you do need to vent, because you can have the tendency to allow things to build up and then you explode. So you don't want that to happen, because then you could potentially be taking out your anger either at the wrong person. It's like at literally every single thing that you've been storing up just all of a sudden comes out at the wrong person. Or it could be the right person, but that's not the best way to deal with it. So you're reacting to something as opposed to, you know, consciously choosing words that you say and like navigating how to deal with this other person. You're just kind of letting it happen according to your emotions, and just say whatever it is that is on the top of your head without thinking. You might have a really sharp tongue. There's that Queen of Swords, you know. So, and you might have some of this stuff affecting you at work. It might be affecting you, like you might be having things that are bothering you outside of the home, but then you bring them home and you take it out on your loved ones because you feel comfortable to do so, whereas you don't feel comfortable to do so at another environment. But the problem being that you don't have a good way of venting and processing your stuff. And then with that Hermit card being so significant, you really need to have your own time to allocate to this process of, if you can honestly ask yourself, is there someone or something that you have hate toward or resentment of? Meaning, not to say you're not justified, you know, not to say there's something that you hate that anybody else in their right mind would hate, but you taking the high road and not actually hating that person will do you wonders. Like, if you can reframe it and see them from their little child perspective and just be like, it's not, it could even go farther than compassion if you have to turn it into pity that way, to feel like it's just, so it's not hate. I mean, you might have even heard of that, like, it's like, I don't even hate you, I just pity you, you know, that kind of thing. So it's not negating what it is that you hate, it's just saying, for your own sake, to reframe it. But the Star card being the conclusion here is optimistic. It's an optimistic card to have. If you had either Star reversed or maybe a different card, any of the darker cards, I would be a little bit more concerned. But if this applies to you, it's highly likely that you'll be able to reframe some of these situations and or people in the way that you perceive them to your benefit. Okay? All right, that's it for you guys for 37. So I'm going to move on. Okay, 33. If you picked 33, here is your card. Okay, shame. If you have drawn this sigil you are not seeing or admitting to your shame, you need to attend to your shame. Shame is one of the most misunderstood aspects of social behavior. The reason for this is that most people think shame is solely a mental and emotional response to self-diminishing experiences, beliefs, and thoughts. The truth is, shame is much more primal than that, and it's more debilitating. Okay, so let me see how long this one is. Should I... Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to pause it and go over this, and then I'll give you guys a summary. Okay, so one thing that is interesting about shame is she says it is seeing yourself as bad, but wanting to have other people see you as good. So here are some things that have to do with it. It says, the ego will cope with shame through all of the classic coping mechanisms: denial, deflecting, rationalizing, projecting, suppressing, splitting into alter egos, converting it into physical symptoms, overcompensating, intellectualizing, isolating, self-injuring. So these are all ways that people will deal with shame if it's like a really prominent thing. So it's hard for me to explain this one because I'm trying to like relate it to something of my own experience, and she has some examples in here, but one of the things that it could be like you get defensive if somebody says something to you that makes you feel shame, and getting defensive also then making them be the bad guy in order to self-cope with your shame, because you don't want to feel it, so you deflect it. Whether it be that you do that toward the person or just toward yourself, where you try to make them look bad so that you don't have to deal with, you know, your own thing. But one of the questions to ask is, what about this situation makes me feel like a bad person or defective or not good enough or wrong? Okay, so this also feels like it's very closely tied to the first card, because that one was literally having to do with that topic of being good enough, or, you know, being seen as good and all that. So because of that, because it's so closely tied, this one might have to come first also if you picked 1 and 3. Yeah, 12 was your goodness. Now, with shame, I feel like that self-judgment it doesn't really talk about that in this description. It's like you can't feel shame about something unless you judge that thing that you feel shame about to be bad. So what is it that makes you feel bad about yourself? And then what is it that you're doing as a result of feeling bad about yourself? Are you doing any of those coping mechanisms, or any coping mechanisms really? Because coping mechanisms happen for a reason, and it could be this, it could be something else. So, whatever it is you could be doing, let's say, for example, distracting. You distract yourself from yourself so that you don't have to think about the things that make you not like yourself. So instead of actually beating yourself up for them, instead what you do is you choose to ignore them and not deal with them. So then you put on this like persona of like a person, somebody who doesn't have that thing. It's like you have it, but you bury it so that even though you have it, nobody else would know, kind of thing. And then that further perpetuates the shame. So it's kind of like this idea of what is it that you might have, and then make peace with it and accept it as thing. Like what's the harm of you saying, yeah, this thing is true, and it's a factor? Like, you're only admitting it to yourself. So like, what's the problem with just admitting something to yourself? Nobody else will know. If you can like make peace with it, you might feel this sense of release that comes along with it. There's like this relief that how like nothing changed. You admitted something to yourself, nothing changed as a result of that. In fact, like whatever that means, it means. It is what it is. Why are you this way? It's this classic notion of maybe I was made this way. Maybe there is nothing wrong with it. Maybe it's something that is inherent to me and there's nothing I can do about it, so why feel bad about it? That kind of thing. And then you can move forward from there with that, having that. So you're not internalizing the judgment of it. Okay. So, I'm looking at the tarot cards right now to kind of see if I get anything else from it, but I'm not getting anything new, except just a new way of thinking is coming out, and then that resulting in some kind of spiritual shift for you will definitely help. It's going to help you not be defensive. It's going to help you not speak harshly. Not just will the spiritual overturn help you as a person, but there's something that has to do with your spiritual abundance as well, like, or your physical abundance rather, due to spirituality being available to you. And then could have something to do with you get past this yourself, you help others with it, that kind of thing. And then 10 of Swords, but it's reversed, is promising, because that means that this might be a low point for you, this topic, or just right now what you're going through. And being that these cards are something that's hidden from you, it means that this might not be something that you were even thinking about dealing with or thinking it was important, but it apparently is. It's some underlying thing that needs to be dealt with. So the 10 of Swords is kind of saying, okay, look, you deal with it, then you get past it, as opposed to it just being there. You can finally deal with it and just get over it and move on from there. Say there's something that you can't control, and it is what it is. It's something about yourself, either a way of thinking or feeling. And you just have this shame about it. But if you were to just accept that thing, what would that really mean? And that in itself, I think, will help you have that spiritual transformation that I saw in the cards. Okay? So I have a reading to do here, and then I'm going to start pile 4. Pile 4, which is 29. Last but not least. Let me see what it is. What if I'm only supposed to do 3 piles? Now that I think about it, hold on. Sometimes when the timing is weird like that, wanting to be right. I have a couple minutes, hold on. The truth of the situation is it doesn't matter if you're right or not. You might be wrong, or you might be right. Either way, who effing cares? She didn't say that, but I did. What do you get out of being right? It's almost like this idea, I think this is going to be, I'm able to wrap this up quick. Okay. What I'm getting here is, it doesn't freaking matter. Like, let's turn this into a legal thing, right? You can be innocent and you're on the stand and the jury convicts you as guilty. Doesn't freaking matter. You're guilty now and you're serving a life sentence for something. And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. And that's kind of what I'm getting for your situation. Let me pull a couple tarot. You know, it doesn't matter in your instance about this thing that you're so right about. You're so right, you know. And you might not be 100% right either. You might be partially right, but you might not be 100% right. And it doesn't matter. Who cares if you're right or not? It's not going to change anything. So you might have just needed to hear that, you know. Peace of mind with knowing it doesn't matter. Yeah, all right. Let's see if there's anything else. There's a lot of emotions going on, though, about this. And there was a, you know, 5 of Cups reversed. It's something from the past that it might not be affecting you right this second, but when it comes up, it really bothers you, and for good cause. But with the 7 of Cups, it's showing me that I don't think you're right about literally everything in the situation, and you might need to reevaluate and reprocess the whole situation. So whatever came to your mind about that, or whatever comes to your mind in general regarding that, reprocessing. All right, short and simple to the point.